I actually originally started off in aerospace engineering. I just built, man. I just started building, right? So everyone knows how to write code in Python. What has your code done? Like, what value did your code bring? Right? What impact did your code make? So
hi, what's your name and what do you do?
my name is Uma. I am a software engineer at Microsoft.
So why and how did you break into software engineering?
I've always been curious about how things work, and so I actually originally started off in aerospace engineering, but eventually that curiosity kind of faded out with aerospace once you take a couple of aerodynamics classes. But I ended up pivoting my curiosity to software because there's so many places you can work on, so many things you can do in so many aspects, and so that's basically how I got into software.
So the skills for aero and the skills for software are not the same thing? How did you learn how to become a software engineer?
I just built, man. They're two completely different things. I just started building, right? So if I would be like, all right, hey, I'm on this website. How does this website work? Then I would go I would go watch a tutorial on how to build it, and then I would build my own version of the website with specific things that I wanted to see. Then I would do the same thing for like mobile apps, right? I'm on TikTok, Instagram. What happens? Like, how do you create this thing? And so I would then go build my own version. And so that's just what I kept doing over and over again.
And in your perspective, like, what's the value of approaching learning how to become a software engineer in this way so impactful to new people trying to break in?
I think the value here is you're kind of taking that abstraction away from it, right? Because whatever any of these companies are doing, right? Whatever their services, whatever their products whatever their products are, at the end of the day, it's software, right? It's either a web application, it's a web app, it's a mobile app, it's an automation tool, it's a desktop app. It's code that has been written and it's providing value. Why don't you go learn how to create that in some way, right? It could be something as simple as just a Hello World mobile app, but the fact that you built it and you deployed it to the App Store, you now know what that process looks like, right? When you go talk to like a mobile app company, for example, you can talk to them in their terms, talk to them in their, I went on Xcode, I did that. Oh, you know about Xcode? We use Xcode as work, you know what I mean? That's one less thing they have to teach. That's one less thing that you didn't have to spend time onboarding on. So the value in learning by just doing, it exposes you to everything and it helps you talk to these engineers, these companies in ways that they can relate to.
So what are some mistakes you've seen on resumes that people should avoid?
Man, putting every single programming language on there without showing how you learned or how you picked up those programming languages, right? I like to put the languages beside experiences. That way you can relate my knowledge to specific experiences. Another one that I've seen is either using too little font because you're trying to squeeze everything in as much as possible, or using too big font where you now have 2 pages of a resume and recruiters will only look at the first page, right? So those are just some of the most common mistakes. Oh, a huge one is not like listing things that you've done in terms of
just tasks
instead of the impact. That's a huge one. The impact, right? Everyone knows how to write code in Python. What has your code done? Like, what value did your code bring? Right? What impact did your code make? So those are the things that you should be listing on your resume, not just what you did, but the value that it brought to the company.
So for you to work at Microsoft, right, you must have had a couple successful interviews. What do you think that interviewers are typically looking for, in candidates to be successful?
I typically think from the interviews that I've done, I'm typically looking to somewhat relate to your experiences or see how your experiences measure up to the work that you will potentially be doing. So sometimes it's the complexity of the projects, right? Sometimes it's the language or how you go about describing similar problems that you've worked on in the past and how it applies. So that's why I typically tell people, have like stories in your bag that you can just pull up that are directly related to things that you may potentially be doing in this role. So if someone asks you, hey, what's the most difficult problem that you worked on before, you already have that, right? Tell me about a time you did this, you already have that, but make sure they try to relate to this specific role. Yeah.
So the road to 6 figures is paved with a lot of rejections.
Yes.
How does someone who's new to tech and software engineering, how do they handle rejection?
I typically see it as a delay, not denial. right? It'll take time for you to get there. It takes time for you to invest, the hours and with each rejection, I see it as an opportunity for you to go say, okay, what could I have done better there, right? I filled so many interviews, right? And with each one, I always go back and say, all right, from my understanding, right? Because there could be so many aspects in play. What could I have done better, right? And sometimes it's just maybe I could have articulated the story better, or maybe I could have actually prepared for the technical part of the interview and actually go done it, right? Yeah. So it's all about just understanding that delay is not denial, and if it's something that you really enjoy and you put your mind to, you'll definitely get it. Yeah.
So what does a salary look like for someone who's new to a role in software engineering?
It depends on the company, and it depends on the role, and it depends on what you're doing. Typically, if it's a smaller to mid-sized company, you're looking at between 80 and 120. But if it's like a fine company, you're looking at definitely starting above 120, and depending on what you get with stocks and all that, it can go up to as high as 170 to 200. So it all depends on the company, but they're definitely above 100 for sure.
So for anyone trying to break into tech from a different industry, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Take your time. It's not going to happen overnight, right? Figure out a plan, a sustainable plan that works for you, right? Figure out a sustainable plan, because what typically happens is people start and they put their foot on the pedal, and for 6 months they're taking these courses, learning this, going to these places, and after when they see that, I'm not seeing the direct outcome of that, they stop. But the reality, it takes time for you to build and understand knowledge in that space. For you, it then takes even more time for you to be able to show that you know that knowledge, right? It takes a lot of time, right? And so just be patient with yourself. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and eventually things are going to work out.
So you mean it's not 90,000 in 90 days?
No. It takes time. It definitely takes time.
Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you.
For sure.